A very good morning to you. This is the Daily Brief and it starts right now. My name is Ian Wafula. Our sign language interpreter is Mudhoni Wagaki. Time now to have a look at some of the top stories that are making headlines today. It's still a busy day within the corridors of justice as we expect Member of Parliament Kangogo Bowen to actually know his fate at the Court of Appeal in Eldoret, coming just a day after the very same High Court upheld the election of Nandi Hills Member of Parliament Member of Parliament that is Alfred Keter. Meanwhile, CS Kuriatani forms team to probe the SGR discrimination claims, which actually leads us to, the first part of our discussion. We shall get to that shortly. We shall be speaking to one of the union chairpersons who is actually representing those who are working at the SGR. Meanwhile, hawkers at Marigiti have staged demonstrations, operations, and have been interfered with around that particular area in a morning battle with the police from matters tear gas to roadblocks. We shall keep you up to speed. Our teams will be on the ground to just paint for us a picture exactly how that looks like. Meanwhile, matters education, the Committee on Education is set to meet over the ongoing schools unrest. Remember, at least we have 42 schools that have so far been affected by the ongoing schools arrest, coming in the midst of a riot act being read out by the Cabinet Secretary and other stringent measures that have been put in place. We shall review that a little bit later. And then finally, it is just a few days to the 16th of July, the date when former President Barack Obama is expected to be in the country. Now, residents of Kagalo very interested in this, and they're gearing themselves towards that particular day. Now, in the meantime, like I'd mentioned to you, still on matters corridors of justice, we're expecting a ruling in regards to the election of Kangogo Bowen as Member of Parliament. Now, that particular case is about to start, and there is a Member of Parliament flanked by his legal team and other colleagues as well. We shall find out whether he will survive this time around and whether the Court of Appeal will quash the High Court decision. So we shall keep you up to speed about that. In the meantime, matters education still making a lot of headlines. We have the Education Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohamed. Those are live pictures coming to us right now, alongside Nats Wilson Sosion. Very interesting to see them, on the same table, given that they have differed as to whether schools-going children should actually have uniformed, so to say, so that whether they should all have the same uniforms, and this is a measure that the Education Ministry believes that will see through and improve the security of students across the country and protect parents from exploitation. A proposal coming from the Kenya Parents Association, which seemingly enjoys a bit of support from members of that particular ministry. However, the stakeholders such as the unions NAT and COPET are against it. So we shall keep you up to speed about these developing stories. Now, the government, through its spokesperson Eric Kiraithe, has denied claims that Kenyans working for the standard gauge railway line are being discriminated. That is what we shall be discussing right now. But even before we get to that, let me now introduce my guests shortly. Joining us right now, we have John Chumo, who is a member and I believe the chairperson of the Kenya Allied Workers, Railway Allied Workers Union. Thank you very much, John, for joining us. We have Boni Khalwale, the deputy party leader of Ford Kenya. We also have governance expert Charles Munyui, and without forgetting our security and current affairs analyst, Colonel Benjamin Mwema. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Now, in case you do not know how exactly what has been happening at the standard gauge railway line, claims of discrimination have emerged. Bear with the Chinese is what those are the exact words of the government spokesperson Eric Kiraithe, and this is actually yesterday following the claims of discrimination by the Chinese counterparts at the standard gauge railway project. Government spokesperson Eric Kiraithe, who spoke in Nairobi, downplayed the claims of mistreatment, saying investigations into the matter were ongoing, urging those affected by that and those claims to actually lodge formal complaints. Joy Kiruki Juma reports.
The launch of the standard gauge railway heralded a lot of promise, a promise that was greatly welcomed by both state and citizens. But 1 year down the line, emerging claims of unfair labour practices seem to be taking over the discourse, with Kenyan nationals working with the SGR accusing their employer, the China Road and Bridge Corporation, of discrimination.
Contract inasema ukiumia kazini, the company is not liable. You are supposed to be responsible, ujichunge. Accident is an accident.
Statements that have caused a storm on social media, with the workers accusing the Chinese employer of unfair employment terms, assignments, poor pay, discriminative sitting arrangements, catering and personal hygiene services, among others.
Malipo nitalipwa like 30,000. A Chinese atalipwa up to 150,000. 5 times me. Yet tumefanya kazi na yeye.
But instead, the government spokesman Eric Kiraithe, while addressing the media, turned the blame on the workers, cautioning them against taking to social media to vent their grievances.
You are living in an organization and you are demarketing it. You are giving it bad publicity. Your place is outside that organization.
Hiyo statement ya Eric Kiraithe, it's so disappointing.
A statement that has gotten Kenyans irked on social media, and which comes only a day after it emerged that the Chinese company had asked its Kenyan staff to sign a secrecy and non-disclosure agreement. A state of affairs John Chumo, the Secretary General in charge of the Kenya Union of Railway Workers, has termed as wanting.
The Chinese, they have made these people, they fear. They have that fear for nothing because they think they will be victimized.
A railway line is part of a critical infrastructure of any country. It is actually a security installation. It requires a higher standard of discipline.
Kiraithe has instead urged Kenyans to bear with the Chinese. Never mind that you would never get such a response should you discriminate against a local in a foreign country.
Divide and rule that Chinese are using in their administration, hatuwezi kuwalalamikia wao. Manake huyo Mkenya mwenzangu atalipwa pesa mingi mara 3 mimi. Ndiposa a sideline na Mchina. Mimi nikanyagiwe chini.
Madaraka Express, which cost the taxpayer 30 million shillings daily to operate the service, has employed over 1,600 Kenyans who are expected to fully take over the running of the rail service in 2027.
Joining us right now, like I'd mentioned, is John Chumo, the Secretary General of the Railways Allied Workers Union. Now, John, let me start with you. Describe for us the exact conditions in which the Kenyans working for the SGR are under.
Viewers, my name is John Chumo. I am the Secretary General of Railway and the Allied Workers Union. To start with, the problem we are seeing in SGR, I think it started immediately when the operations were started. You will remember the famous Madaraka Express, where we had 2 beautiful ladies driving those locomotives from Mombasa to Nairobi, and they all of a sudden disappeared. We are being told by Managing Director of Kenya Railway, who is supposed to be monitoring what is happening in SGR. In fact, CRBC is an operator, but the owner of the services is Kenya Railway.
John, are you confirming to us that we no longer have Kenyans as the drivers of the locomotives?
But that is what the managing director said, and we don't have, because they have not been given opportunity to drive those locomotives. And that is one of the complaints we have raised every now and then, that they should be allowed to drive. These people are trained, and most of them were locomotive drivers who are driving locomotives in Kenya Railway before the collapse of the then Rift Valley Railway Workers Union. The conversion course, that will not take years. And you see, these are not pilot. If it was a pilot...
I'll come back to you, John. Bonnie, let me hear from you. You call yourself Bonnie Mtetezi. And, you know, this particular discussion has brought about to the fore on the questions to do with neocolonialism. What do you have to say about that?
Unfair trade employment practices It's not acceptable in Kenya. It is not acceptable in China. It is not acceptable anywhere in the world. But let me speak to where we got it wrong. We got it wrong from the word go when we brought in this project SGR on the wrong concept. Basically, what we should have done, Parliament should have given concession either to the government of China or an entity in China to build the standard gauge rail line. Having given that concession, they would have built, they would have operated, recovered their money, and transferred the project to the people of Kenya. But because we got it wrong, now the Chinese have given us the money to build. They have come and built it themselves. Now they are operating it themselves, and we are expected, using taxpayers' money, to fund that exercise. So what they will do, they'll just walk away with the money and give us
Government
something
spokesperson Eric
collapse.
Kiraithe Boni believes that it is quite complex to manage some of these locomotives. That's why we need the expertise of Chinese.
Please, I'm a doctor of medicine, and I'm able to do just about any surgical procedure like any other doctor in the world. So to say that driving a silly locomotive requires some special talent is an insult to Kenyan youth.
Charles, what are your take? And I'm sure you've listened to Eric Kiraithe in the first place.
They have been driving.
I watched the government spokesman, and it's amazing. The other day we watched the CS Interior talking about jobs that can be done by Kenyans being done by foreigners, and I think that's the bottom line. And I think they need to read from the same script. The short and long of it is that things that can be done by Kenyans cannot be done by foreigners. More importantly, the amount of money that is being paid to those that do those things that can be done by Kenyans should be equivalent to the work that is, or rather the amount that is being paid to those foreigners that have been doing the same. You cannot tell me it's just about a job of work, that I am doing this, I get paid the minimal amount that is payable, when a similar job being done by an individual from out there simply because he's Chinese or Korean, he's paid 4 or 5 times. And these guys cannot be crying unless there's a good reason as to why that is happening. And we need to remind each other that even as a government spokesman, you're employed by Kenyans, so you represent Kenyans. It is good to come out there and tell us things are okay, that this installation is of this nature, and we should not be talking about it, but we are talking about basic small little things of employment and relationship between the employer and the employee. It's that simple. That's not about the security or others of the infrastructure or the installation that we have here. So I think that needs to be looked into, and a cross-section of a lot of our things. We've seen Chinese hawking in the streets, even in villages, moving around with gadgets that an average Kenyan can move around with. Yet an individual from my village here in Ruaka, Ogashe, you walk into Nairobi with a small gadget trying to sell, you'll be beaten left, right, and center by everyone. Yeah, so I think that's a way to look at these things. We need to appreciate that Kenyans need this work. We've been crying about employment. We cannot create employment and then we give it away. More importantly, if we create it, can we pay our people properly?
He refers to standard procedure in terms of the conduct in which some of the SGR officials and staff are supposed to work, describing it in a military manner, so to say, and therefore you have to work under such conditions. Colonel, you come from that particular area. What do you think?
Thank you, Ian. The first thing I want to say is that this issue of Chinese goods, Chinese services, Chinese products has almost made us slaves. We seem to think that if it is Chinese, it is okay, it is good, it is the best. I don't think so. So this is the mentality that has permeated our whole social fabric in Kenya. Now, if you go to the SGR, yes, SGR is a strategic project for this country because it affects the economy. But that does not give anybody the right to discriminate against Kenyans. Yeah. Nowhere in the world will you go as a foreigner and be given by the government of that country the will to go and discriminate against the citizens of that country. It never happens anywhere, not here, not in China, not anywhere else. Okay. And therefore, the sentiments that have been put forward by some of us are very unfortunate, because as a government, they should get to the bottom of it. And we should also realize this here, just before I finish, that if you give someone a job to do, and they know if they train the locals, they will be kicked out, they will never train the locals. Okay.
Okay.
So we have given them a free hand to do whatever they want for the period they want, and our people will never be trained.
Okay.
It's unfortunate.
I'll come back to you, gentlemen. We're receiving live pictures, like I'd mentioned to you, running battles between hawkers and police in Waikiki area still going on right now, and those are live pictures. And you can see the hawkers definitely protesting about their working welfare. And of course, this is in line with the county government to try and clean up parts of the city. Let's pull that image, live stream, just to have a look at exactly what is happening. Police trying to disperse the crowds with tear gas, and this has been the case since early morning today. So normal operations in that particular area have been interrupted. Guys are on the ground, and they will be telling us exactly what is happening and taking us through some of the sentiments that are coming from the hawkers there, even as police try to quell that particular situation. They've blocked parts of the road, and as you can see there with that particular with the particular tires right in the middle of the road. So we shall keep you up to speed. In the meantime, we're discussing matters discrimination claims at the standard gauge railway line. John Chumo, let me engage you on this. We understand that the staff were made to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I don't know if you've had a chance to have a look at the contents of that NDA, but why was this necessary?
Yeah, I've seen it. Our members at a place known as Car Depot within the RBR SGR headquarters sent us a copy. And that one, to me or to us, it doesn't mean anything, because you see, if you didn't sign a contract to keep secret of the company in the first day, in the initial stage, there is no way you can later on, because there are some problems which are going on, you issue a circular or you issue forms for people to sign, because that will not be a binding contract. In fact, what they are trying to do, they want to incriminate the workers. And that is, I think that is one way they want to do away with the members who are active. Because you see, you cannot tell me, there is no way you can avoid a social media. And that is one way of communication. If I communicate through social media, what is wrong with it? Unless when you say negative, what is negative information? Okay. And to who? Who is the consumer of that negative information? Because when I'm writing to my manager, I'm not writing to members of public. It is him now to respond to that.
Perhaps the question to some of your members, have they exhausted all avenues to communicate some of these challenges before taking them to social media?
Yes, you see, because you see, the people who are supervising Kenya, the issue at RBR in SGR is too big. You see, the people who are supposed to be supervisors, the HRs in every section, are Chinese. And the second people who are supposed to be communicating with the workers are the Kenyans who are known as team leaders. These team leaders are the only people who have been trained, they can communicate in Chinese. So Chinese being a supervisor, for a Kenyan worker to communicate with the Chinese must go through the team leader. Now, that barrier of communication, it forces them to sometimes, because if the team leader, the so-called team leader, cannot communicate effectively to Chinese, and then Chinese, they don't respond, because what Chinese want, they don't want any information to reach the head office. So I've met with the human resource manager, even the general manager. They say the information I'm giving them, they are going to investigate because they have not been given.
They have not been given that
So
information.
that barrier of communication is there, and it has not been it has not been reduced, because what we expected is for them to allow these people a free hand even to write suggestion. And to drop in suggestion box, which are not there. Another thing is the communication barrier. If you write something in Chinese character, it's not possible for anyone to read like that. That's letter of secrecy.
So there is already a challenge of communication.
Yes.
Bonnie, what do you make of this? We have about slightly over 1,200 Kenyans working there and about 500 Chinese, according to the details given yesterday. This particular transition period is set to go on for 10 years before Kenyans can fully control the management of SGR.
10 years is far too long. And unknown to maybe viewers, one of my colleague panelists here is a pilot. Benjamin is a pilot.
An instructor pilot,
yes.
An examiner.
And he will confirm to you that to convert a pilot from an F-15 to an F1?
16.
To an F-16.
Takes 5 hours.
It takes only 5 hours. And that is, you're talking about flying an aircraft. So please, Grade and the dear government, give us a break. We do not need 10 years to convert our former locomotive drivers from what they knew to what they are supposed to be.
But Bonnie, this is already a deal that has already been signed. Therefore, how do we go against that?
Well, it doesn't mean that it is cast in stone. It is not. And more importantly to me, the thing that Grede is ranting about brings into focus the issue of the Bill of Rights in our Constitution, the right to privacy. These workers should have been the ones complaining if, through the social media, somebody had disclosed the adverse conditions under which they were working. It is themselves who disclosed. So if they chose to tell Kenyans how much they are paid or underpaid, their privacy was not being breached by anybody. They did it themselves. So what is Grede trying to protect?
Okay. Charles, let me hear from you. The spokesperson says, and I'm quoting him, that if you post negative issues about your company, then you don't even belong there in the first place.
I think we must appreciate that the aspect of non-disclosure agreements, like Bonnie says, we need to appreciate inherent dignities provided for in the Constitution. You cannot, treat people badly, do all this manner of things, hiding behind non-disclosure agreements. Like I said, the government spokesman works for Kenyans. It must start there. So those people are working there, but it does not mean simply because you're working in an organization, you must be treated badly. He must appreciate and realize that these guys need a job of work, but that job of work must be such that, and the question is, we are doing a comparative analysis. There are individuals who are doing the same thing, but simply and purely because they are of a certain lineage, they are treated better, they are paid better, a lot of things are happening. The 10 years is not even an issue. The question is, what is happening today on a day-to-day basis for the average young individual or old individual who is working in this organization? Forget about the 10-year span that we were talking about. What is the relationship? Because those are the same people that you're telling to keep quiet, do nothing about it. What about an implosion where they end up sabotaging from within? I am happy that they're talking about these things so that they are addressed, so that we can be served by Kenyans who are happier a lot.
Colonel, the cry of discrimination is not the first time we're hearing in the country. The Cuban doctors just came into the country the other day, and we saw the kind of payments they were receiving. In the like manner, locomotives drivers at the SGR, from what I understand, earn about 30,000, the local ones, while those of Chinese origin earn nearly 100,000. What do you make of these disparities? Because those are some of the issues they're raising.
I think it is unfortunate, it is unfair. If you're trained to do a job, you should be paid uniformly. We understand, of course, that because they come from another country, there's usually what they call
They're
subsistence.
treated as expatriates.
Subsistence allowance and so forth and so forth. But that really should not be astronomical. It should be within reason, whereby everybody, when they look at it rationally, they can say, look, this is a fair deal. Now, as Kenyans, we seem to have this mentality whereby if someone comes from abroad, they're automatically better than Kenyans. I think that is there somewhere along our psyche. And I think it's high time we believe in ourselves and we respect ourselves as Kenyans and know that if anybody comes here, we are equivalent. I have gone to school in UK, I've gone to school in the US, I've gone to school all over the world. Nobody has beaten me in those schools, and I'm a Kenyan. But if I come back here, people look down at me. But if a Muzungu, who I beat in the same school I was in, comes here, he will be given better treatment than me. Therefore, we have to get rid of this psych mentality, so that we know Kenyans are Kenyans.
Yeah. John, let me give you the last chance for you to speak on this, and I'd like to hear what exactly you're advocating for. Currently, the government has said they're investigating these claims that have come up from sections of your members, but as a union, what are you advocating for right now?
First of all, let me comment on the salary issue.
Yeah.
What our brother here is saying is not true. You see, we say in labor movement, equal work, equal pay.
Yeah.
There is no way you can say he's an expatriate. Because I remember companies like Magadi Soda, they were paying, the salary they were paying in Kenya is what they were paying in Britain. The company like Del Monte, the salary they are paying in Kenya is what they pay in Britain. So there is no way of people being given some inducement or incentives to work in Kenya.
But can you confirm there's that kind of disparity, a difference of
It is
about
there.
70,000?
It is there, yes.
Yeah?
I'm confirming it is there.
Okay.
Now, we as union, we have an international, a global organization known as International Transport Workers Federation. We had a meeting and we decided that we have to approach the issue through our national coordinating committee. We have already written to MD Kenya Railway. We want him to clarify some issues. Whatever is going on in Kenya, in SGR,
yeah.
He said in the papers himself that he has launched investigation. We want to see the outcome of those investigations. Let him give us a copy, then we shall decide the next course of action to take. As regards our members, these people have been threatened and they fear. You can see the gentleman who was trying to speak, he was hiding his face because that is what a reality in SGR. You cannot be allowed to just to go and talk freely. Even those people you saw lying down in the newspaper, that is a place where they are maintaining the wagons and motor vehicles. And I had the opportunity to visit that place one day for recruitment drive. When those people were called, they were marching like askaris with somebody leading them. And they marched all the way up to where we were. But the Chinese who was leading them could not even speak a word in English.
Okay.
So they had to look for a translator for them to come and translate for us.
Okay, thank you, John. Let me now take final comments from the rest of the panel. And if you follow this discussion on matters SGR, Kenyans are simply wondering whether we've sold our country. Boni.
I am disappointed that the government doesn't want to rise to the opportunities that they have to address this problem instead of trying to be protective just because of the investment that the government of China has made in Kenya. Indeed, the United Nations, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, has got the International Labour Organization that speaks to the need to standardize, to protect the workers, and 3, to give equal opportunities to people who seek to be employed. So now, the government, instead of protecting us, they are now opening us to neo-colonization, unfortunately, and that is wrong.
Okay, thank you, Boni. Charles, keep it as short. Also, take a short
Yeah,
break.
it's unfortunate. Like our colleague here has said, that when you have these issues to raise, you are raising them when you're hiding your face. I think it should not happen. When you see teachers complaining, they complain with their faces on national television. They don't hide them. So something is going down at the SGR. It needs to be looked into so that the fear we have seen in these individuals of talking, these are employees. It's not like they're in some jail or something. So we need to have them out there speaking their mind, talking about the issues of concern publicly. It's not about something to hide about.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Kana.
It's a serious matter that must be given the seriousness that it deserves. It must be investigated and something must be done about it. However, we seem to be giving a blanket check to the Chinese just because they are giving us a strategic project. That, in my view, is not right. We should correct this and do it rightly.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm changing the panel. We're letting go of John Chumo, who's the Secretary General of the Railways Allied Workers Union. Thank you very much, John, and certainly we hope that some of your grievances will be addressed. Thank you for that. We're taking a short commercial break. When we come back, the war on graft continues. Quite a number of committees still probing from matters contraband sugar to other aspects of that. Stay tuned. This is the Daily Brief.